Beyond the Redline. The city never truly slept. Beneath its bright towers and crowded streets, another world came alive after midnight, a world of roaring engines, illegal races, and money that changed hands in the shadows. Tonight, the old highway outside the city was packed with people waiting for the most anticipated race of the month. Two black and red cars stood at the starting line, their engines growling like beasts ready to break free. Behind the wheel of the first car sat Dante Moretti, the undefeated champion of the underground circuit. He was calm, almost arrogant, his fingers resting lightly on the steering wheel. Across from him stood Kieran Vale, his oldest and most dangerous rival. Kieran leaned against his car with a smirk. "Try not to cry when you lose again, Moretti." Dante looked at him through the window. "You talk too much for someone who always finishes second." The crowd exploded with laughter and cheers. They had heard this argument many times before. Every race between Dante and Kieran was more than a competition, it was personal. The lights turned red. 3, 2, 1. Go. Both cars launched forward at the same time. Tires screamed against the asphalt as they disappeared into the darkness. Kieran took the first corner aggressively, forcing Dante toward the outer edge of the road. Dante barely avoided the barrier before stepping on the accelerator. "Still reckless," he muttered. "Still following me," Kieran replied through the radio. For the next several minutes, neither man gave an inch. They raced through narrow streets, sharp turns, and tunnels where the sound of their engines echoed like thunder. Finally, they reached the last straight road. Kieran was half a car ahead. Dante pushed harder. Their cars moved side by side, only centimeters apart. The finish line appeared ahead. Kieran smiled. But just before the line, Dante suddenly changed lanes, forcing Kieran to react. Both cars crossed almost simultaneously. The crowd went silent, the officials checked the cameras. Dante won by 0.03 seconds. Kieran stepped out of his car, furious. "You cheated." Dante walked toward him, completely calm. "You should be faster." Kieran grabbed his jacket. "One day, Moretti. I swear I'll beat you." Dante looked directly into his eyes. "I'll be waiting." Neither of them noticed the men standing in the shadows behind the crowd. They were not there for the race. They were watching Dante. One of them quietly spoke into his phone. "The target is here." And the other racer saw everything. Dante's smile disappeared when he noticed the men. He knew that look. Something was wrong. And for the first time, the next race between Dante and Kieran would not be about winning. It would be about staying alive. The night after the race, Kieran could not sleep. He kept thinking about the strange men standing near the finish line. More importantly, he remembered the way Dante had looked at them. It was not fear. It was recognition. The next evening, Kieran returned to the underground garage where the racers usually gathered. He expected to find Dante, but instead, he saw several black cars parked outside. Before he could leave, a man in a dark suit stepped in front of him. "Kieran Vale?" Kieran frowned. "Who wants to know?" The man smiled coldly. "Someone who knows you saw something you shouldn't have seen." Kieran's heart tightened. He turned to run, but two men blocked the exit. Suddenly, the sound of an engine exploded through the garage. A black sports car crashed through the metal gate, sending everyone into chaos. The driver's door opened. Dante stepped out. "Get away from him." His voice was calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it. The men immediately raised their weapons. Kieran stared at Dante in disbelief. "You brought this trouble to me?" Dante didn't look at him. "No. You were already in it." A gunshot echoed through the garage. Dante grabbed Kieran and pulled him behind a concrete pillar. "Stay here." "Why should I trust you?" Kieran whispered. Dante looked at him for a second. Because I'm the only reason you're still alive. More shots rang out. Dante fired back before grabbing Kieran's wrist and dragging him toward his car. They jumped inside, and the engine roared to life. As they escaped into the night, Kieran finally asked the question that had been haunting him. Who are those people? Dante remained silent for several seconds. Then he said quietly, my family. Kieran turned toward him. Your family? Dante's hands tightened around the steering wheel. The Moretti family doesn't just own racetracks. He glanced at Kieran through the mirror. They own the people who run them. Kieran slowly understood. The rumors were true. Dante Moretti wasn't simply the best racer in the underground circuit. He was the son of one of the most feared mafia families in the city. And somehow, Kieran had just become part of their world. Rain covered the windshield as Dante drove deeper into the outskirts of the city. Kieran sat beside him, arms crossed, still trying to understand everything that had happened. So what now? He finally asked. You take me somewhere safe, and then we go our separate ways? Dante didn't answer immediately. There is no separate way anymore. Kieran frowned. What does that mean? Dante looked at him. My family believes you saw the exchange last night. Until they know you're dead, they'll keep looking for you. Kieran laughed bitterly. Great. So because I beat you by almost nothing, I end up on a mafia hit list? Dante gave him a brief look. You didn't beat me. Don't start. For the first time that night, Dante almost smiled. But the moment disappeared when his phone rang. He answered without saying anything. A familiar voice came from the other side. Dante, father wants you home. Bring the boy. Dante's expression immediately changed. He hung up. We're going somewhere else. Kieran noticed the tension in his eyes. Why? Because if I take you home, you won't leave alive. Dante drove toward an abandoned racing garage hidden beneath an old warehouse. Inside, there were several cars, tools, spare parts, and a small room in the back. Kieran looked around. You keep a secret garage? Everyone needs somewhere to disappear. Dante handed him a towel. You can stay here tonight. Kieran stared at him. And what do you get? Dante paused. Nothing. You expect me to believe that? Dante stepped closer. I expect you to understand that if I wanted you dead, I wouldn't have saved you twice. The words silenced Kieran. For the first time, he saw something behind Dante's cold expression, loneliness. Before Kieran could respond, headlights appeared outside the garage. Dante immediately turned off the lights. They're here. Kieran's heart began to race. Dante grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a hidden exit. They ran through the narrow tunnel beneath the warehouse, moving in complete darkness. When they finally stopped, Kieran realized Dante was still holding his hand. Neither of them moved. Their eyes met. For a moment, the noise of the outside world disappeared. Then Dante whispered, from now on, you stay close to me. Kieran swallowed. That's an order? Dante looked at him. No. It's a promise. Neither of them knew that somewhere behind them, a man was watching through a security camera. And he had already sent a message to Dante's father. He chose the racer. By morning, the city was filled with rumors. Someone had attacked a warehouse belonging to the Moretti family, and everyone in the underground racing scene knew one thing: Dante had disappeared with Kieran. At the secret garage, Kieran found Dante standing beside his car, staring at a photograph in his hand. Your family? Kieran asked. Dante nodded. My brother, Adrian. Kieran noticed the coldness in his voice. I thought your father was the one in charge. He is. But Adrian is the one who wants his position. Dante placed the photograph on the table. He's been moving money without my father's permission. Last night wasn't about you seeing the exchange. It was about him testing how far I'd go to protect you. Kieran stared at him. And what happens if you fail the test? Dante's eyes darkened. He'll kill us both. Before Kieran could respond, the sound of an engine came from outside. A familiar voice echoed through the garage. Dante. Adrian walked in with several armed men behind him. He looked almost identical to Dante, but unlike his brother, his smile carried no warmth. You always were difficult to control. Dante stepped in front of Kieran. Let him go. Adrian laughed. You still don't understand. This isn't about him anymore. It's about you. He pointed toward the underground track visible through the garage doors. One final race. You and Kieran against my drivers. Dante narrowed his eyes. And if we win? You walk away from the Moretti family forever. Kieran looked at Dante. And if we lose? Adrian smiled. You already know. That night, the abandoned circuit was filled with black cars and armed men. Kieran stood beside Dante at the starting line. You know, Kieran said, this is the first time we're racing on the same side. Dante looked at him. Try not to slow me down. Kieran smiled. Try to keep up. The engines roared. The lights turned green. 4 cars launched into the darkness. Halfway through the race, Kieran realized something was wrong. One of Adrian's cars suddenly attacked Dante, forcing him toward the barrier. Without thinking, Kieran turned his own car and blocked the attack. Metal crashed against metal. Dante's voice came through the radio. Kieran. What the hell are you doing? Kieran laughed despite the danger. Saving your life. You owe me one. Dante pushed the accelerator. Then stay alive long enough to collect it. They raced toward the final corner together. But just as they approached the finish line, gunshots echoed across the track. Adrian had broken his promise. The race was no longer a race. It was an execution. Dante grabbed Kieran's hand for 1 second through the open window. Whatever happens, don't let go. Kieran looked at him and smiled. Then don't let me go. And together, they drove straight into the storm. The gunshots continued behind them as Dante and Kieran raced through the abandoned circuit. Adrian's men chased them from every direction, but Dante knew the track better than anyone. He suddenly turned into a narrow tunnel that had been closed for years. Trust me, he shouted. Kieran followed without hesitation. Behind them, 2 black cars crashed into the tunnel wall, giving the pair enough time to escape. When they finally reached the other side, dawn was beginning to appear over the city. But their escape was not over. Dante stopped the car near an old bridge and looked at Kieran. You should leave. If you stay with me, they'll never stop coming after you. Kieran stared at him for a moment before smiling. Funny. You spent the whole night telling me to stay close. Dante lowered his eyes. That was before I realized how dangerous this would become. Kieran stepped closer. Dante, I've spent years trying to beat you. I thought you were arrogant, cold, and impossible to understand. Dante raised an eyebrow. You forgot annoying. Kieran laughed softly. That too. Then his expression became serious. But somewhere along the way, I stopped wanting to beat you. Dante looked at him, surprised. What do you want now? Kieran answered quietly, to see you choose your own life. For the first time, Dante smiled without hiding it. He took Kieran's hand. Then let's disappear together. Behind them, the Moretti family's empire was beginning to collapse. Evidence of Adrian's crimes had already been sent to the police and to rival families, leaving him with nowhere to hide. Dante had finally walked away from the life chosen for him. Months later, the underground racing circuit was still talking about the 2 racers who disappeared on the same night. Some said they were dead. Others believed they had escaped overseas. But on a quiet road outside the city, 2 familiar cars raced side by side under the morning sun. Kieran looked at Dante through the window and smiled. Race you to the next town. Dante stepped on the accelerator. You'll lose. Kieran laughed and chased him. This time, there was no mafia, no guns, and no finish line that mattered. There were only two racers, side by side, finally free to choose where the road would take them. And perhaps, for the first time, neither of them cared who crossed the finish line first. Because they had already found what they were looking for in each other. The end.